had to wash my hands before I turned the pages.
So you know, don't you, this village?
Yes, that's what I mean. It's John Bunyan's village. He was born here, wasn't he?
Well, within a mile or two, yeah. Lived and married here and put us all into history. Oh, but here's the man to tell you about it. I'd lost track of you poor after the ringing. I just told this gentleman you're the history bloke.
Good evening. What's the question?
No, I realised how I remember the village. It's John Bunyan's.
Ah, yes, the sturdy John. I pretty well lived his life with him over the years. And tonight, especially, I thought of him. At one time of his life, as a lad, he would have had his head off his shoulders with joy at Derby. The time when he would dance like a demon, swear like a tinker, play games on a Sunday like a champion. But when he saw these things as sins, which were driving him into an eternity of hell, why then, poor fellow, he thought the bells would fall on him and strike him dead.
But tonight, you would have thought it had made him glad to see them ringing so clearly through the darkness.
Yes, when he had lost his terrors, he would have been eager to be up with us there, telling the night that the 2,000 years of Christ had come. I could just see him there.
What do you mean, Paul? You could just see him?
Well, I can guess how he would have gone for it, singing out the old and ringing in the new. And, as well as that, celebrating the 322 anniversaries of his book. That would have put him in a glow, I don't doubt it.
That's all you meant, was it?
I used to have a recurring dream, a nightmare, when I was a small boy. I would dream I was trying to escape from a town about to explode, or a city about to be bombed, perhaps it was. And it was desperately difficult to hurry because the path I was on was the keyboard of a piano. And what made it more scary, more difficult, was that I'd been told to keep to the black notes. It used to wake me up in a terrible panic. I hadn't thought of it till now.
How about that? Escaping from the city of destruction.
Poor little Adam.
Or maybe what I'd heard from my parents about the last war and the bombing of cities. Or perhaps even from the First World War, from my grandfather. It was as if I'd been a part of time, as vivid as that. As if time was a great tide washing up on where I played on the beach. Do you hear that, Mr. Receptionist? Well, blow me down if he hasn't gone to sleep again.
You wouldn't think there was enough dream space to accommodate him.
Perhaps we are the dream he's having.
I keep thinking of that fellow who was watching us while we was bell ringing, Paul. But you didn't see him, or did you?
Things don't change much with the passing of time. In those kid nightmares I had, it was as if I was a refugee from Bosnia or somewhere. That crazy division of human beings because of their labels. Do you think humans were any more as they should have been in 1914? I'm talking of that Christmas before the armies were thigh-deep in slaughter. When the Germans started singing, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, and the British took it up. Silent Night, Holy Night. And they played football. And then there were those 4 murderous years to follow. But that wasn't the kind of destruction John Bunyan was fearful of.
Well, no. The Civil War caught him up for a couple of years, of course. He was conscripted when he was 16, called up by one side or the other.
I don't think he ever said which. It would have been Cromwell's lot, surely.
Maybe. Or he might have got hauled in when the king was making a progress through the county. But no, it was later. It was the Civil War in himself that so tore him apart.
Yes, not being on good terms with himself, that must have been rather hard. Do you want to go out into the village then, see what we can find?
No, not just yet.
Only I thought you were so anxious to move on.
Well, I don't have to be everything you think. Plus, there are things I'm interested in hearing. Did he have a wife? No, I see. He was only 18 when he left the army, but then...
He married at 20, I think it was, and just travelled around as his father had done, mending pots, the tinker's trade. But from what we know, he had a great relish for life. He played a fiddle and a flute. Maybe that helped the poet that was in him to take over when the time came. That and reading the chapbooks that his grandfather peddled around the villages. And the Bible that brought him to think he was on the way to damnation. There was that shattering moment out here on the green when he was playing tip-cat on a Sunday. He was just taking a strike at the cat when, as he said, a voice did suddenly dart from heaven into my soul, and it was as if I'd seen the Lord Jesus looking down, severely threatening me with punishment for all my ungodly practices. And that's the note he gave to Christian when he came to write his book.
And that's when the joy even went out of the bell ringing.
Well, he couldn't have exactly been a little ray of sunshine to his wife.
Well, he was as alive as a man could be, whether when he was wrong and guilt-ridden, or when, as he did later on, he came to see that humour was a great lifter of loads, when his God became not a breaker in, but a bringer out.
God does seem to be a ridiculously small word for the size of creation. I can imagine it was a pretty comfortable sized universe in Bunyan's time, a sort of upstairs, downstairs job. But when you think of what infinities we're beginning to reach out to now, always the further, the immeasurable power and the glory.
The Big Bang and all that came of it.
An almighty tiny bang, all space and time and evolution out of the compression of a germ. You can't begin to imagine.
One sound suddenly becoming all the languages. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
There couldn't be an energy strong enough to create, unless it was set off by purpose. The great grinding, accomplishing of purpose. Making, destroying, remaking, adjusting, persuading.
The beauty and the horror of it. Sun rising, moon setting, moon rising, sun setting, like the scales of justice.
And the extravaganza of the inventiveness of life, into every nook and cranny. I saw an insect yesterday walking across the white piece of paper I was about to write. Honestly, no bigger than a dot I could make out with my pen, but with tentacles and feet making its way through the millions of light years. And the heavenly eccentricity of a peacock's tail. How did a common sex urge turn itself into such a pattern of eyes and a shimmer of feathers? Nobody's ever found a word, have they, for what produces such a conjuring of music out of a bird's egg? Well, yes, the survival of the fittest and all that. But what does it? The brain? The sex genes? The mind? What is the mind, anyway?
I've asked myself the same question. Consciousness, the dictionary says, and intelligence, no great help. A kind of creative discipleship, perhaps.